Welcome to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name is Jared Mello, and in today's video, we're going to go over the Narcissistic Life Coach. But before I go into that, if you found my channel because of my interview with HG Tutor, welcome. I talk a lot about radical self-respect concepts on this channel, narcissism, borderline, because I have a lot of personal experience with both, dealing with them. I've had narcissistic traits, I've had borderline traits, and I've learned a lot from people like HG Tutor and other self-proclaimed narcissists and borderlines, and from reading books from professionals. So those are the things we go over on this channel, and I also interview people that I find interesting. And at the beginning of every episode, I tease an expression that I go over at the end of the episode. And today, we're going to go over at the end the origins of the expression crossing the Rubicon. It's something people talk about a lot, but not too many people know the origins. Now, in today's video, though, I'm going to go over the Narcissistic Life Coach. As you might expect, there are a lot of narcissistic people that gravitate to the coaching industry because it appears like a quick way to make money, to build your own business, and people say, oh, I'm worth whatever I say I'm worth, and they go to like the Tony Robbins school of mindset. And here's the thing about that. I totally agree, mindset is super important, but I do think there's a line where mindset and a good belief in yourself becomes outright delusion / exploitative of other people. And for example, if you are a coach and you don't really have that much personal experience or value to offer, and then all of a sudden you're going to charge like $2,000 an hour, to me, that's delusional because you're not providing the value. You're just subscribing to the school of Tony Robbins where he says, you're worth what you say you're worth. I think that can be true as long as you have the value behind it to back it up. I always use the example. If I wanted to learn about stocks, I would spend almost any amount of money to learn from Warren Buffett or Ray Dalio because they have a proven track record. But if someone else is a nobody, then I would think, this person really needs to demonstrate their value to me. And the narcissistic people in the coaching field, they do all the same kinds of things the regular narcissists do. They like to manipulate, gaslight, flip the script. And the difference is, though, they use a lot of life coaching and self-help language to do it. Now, I mentioned the pricing stuff, and that's one way they will gaslight and flip the script. So if someone says to them, I don't think you're worth that much, a person may say, the narcissistic life coach may say, that is what only someone who has a poverty mindset would say that. Or I know you're going to be broke because here you are not just subscribing to my reality and what I want you to do without thinking about it. And that's the kind of narcissistic flipping of the script, abusive behavior that I think gives the whole industry a bad name. And it's tricky, though, because sometimes they may have a point. But instead of the coach flipping the script back on the skeptical potential client, they should say to themselves, I need to demonstrate more value. If people don't want to buy what I'm offering, and they're not lining up at my door to buy what I'm selling, I need to demonstrate more value, somehow, some way. I don't need to bully them. I don't need to shame them and say, you just have a poverty mentality. I know you're broke, or you would just hand me this $2,000 an hour for nothing. And that's the other part about it. Someone can go to school for 10 years to be a clinical psychologist, a psychiatrist, and they don't even charge close to $2,000 an hour. And here you have some of these nobodies that are coaches all of a sudden charging that much. I think it smears the whole industry, but I'm also someone, I recognize there is value in coaching as long as that person has something to offer. If they have value and they have a specific skill set, by all means, get that person as a coach. But there is a line there is a line where a good belief in themselves becomes delusion, and a good belief in themselves becomes exploitative. And that's where the nuance comes into play. But part of this is picking up on the narcissistic tactics that a lot of these people will do. And that's one of the ways you can tell, okay, this person is displaying some red flags. Now, a genuine coach, they're probably not going to flip the script on you like that. Now, if they're going to call you out on something, they're going to validate your feelings first. Oh yes, I understand. I understand your skepticism. And if you say something to them, they are not going to be sensitive to any sort of pushback or criticism. They're not going to try to guilt, shame, or gaslight you into doing what they want you to do. In other words, manipulate you. So if you call them out on something, they'll take a look at their side. They're not just going to hot potato it back to you and flip the script back to you. Another example would be a lot of narcissistic life coaches, they enjoy putting down others. They enjoy finding the flaws in other people, and they will give a lot of unsolicited advice. Now, part of this is because this is just what narcissistic people do in general. They like finding flaws in others, and they like being critical because when they do that, it gives them a sense of superiority. It puts them in the position of power. They get fuel or supply from doing that. And with coaching, they have found the perfect cover to do that. Except now they're going to get paid to do that. And here's the thing. Unless someone is asking for advice, unsolicited advice can really be rotten. Unless someone's asking for it, or unless you're really close with one another and you can be honest. Because I do think there's a point where real friends for one another will call each other out, sure. But a lot of it is, how do you do it? How do you call them out? Because sometimes you can really be a jerk about it. And sometimes if you're really not that good of friends with the person, they can really be a jerk about it too. And they can be pretty abrasive with how they do it. And if someone's abrasive, even if their criticism is correct, and you say, hey, sounds like you're kind of being condescending or talking down to me a little bit, and you say that to them, they will almost certainly flip the script if they're narcissistic, and they will say, that's just how you're perceiving it. Or only someone who needs to do a lot more growing would say something like that. It's similar to what the spiritual narcissist will do. But ultimately, all those tactics, the manipulation tactics, they are attempts to get the attention off of their problematic behavior. And usually it's to avoid accountability or responsibility, get away with whatever they want to get away with, which in the coaching industry is paying clients. And often you will see a lot of these coaches have a group of flying monkeys, for lack of a better word, people that are subscribed to that coach's reality, and they commit abuse by proxy for that coach. And a lot of this, it borders on toxic positivity. I see it a lot in MLM communities. I see it a lot in sales and just in other workplaces in general, where, say, an employee has a concern. They come to their boss or superior with it, and instead of validating what the employee has to say, they will gaslight them using toxic positivity. And it starts with flipping the script or saying something like, you're just being negative. And they won't validate the reality of the situation. They'll always just say, there's a problem with you. And here's the thing. Again, it's tricky because sometimes there is someone that has a bad attitude. Yes, that can happen. But often, the narcissistic boss or the narcissistic person in MLM or a narcissistic coach, they're just saying that to manipulate. They're saying that so they don't have to take any accountability, and they want to get what they want to get. They want a specific outcome. So they will gaslight you using toxic positivity. Any sort of accountability or being called out, you're just being negative. I only want to hear good news, is something they may say. But The theme here is this, and I'm not saying all coaches are narcissistic. No, I'm not saying that at all. But the ones to watch out for, whether it's a narcissistic coach or someone in an MLM or just someone in sales, a sales manager in general, someone who doesn't validate your feelings, and when you try to protest something they say, they will flip the script back on you. And maybe it's gaslighting. Maybe they'll say that's just how you're perceiving it. But if they can't ever just take accountability and hear you out for what you're saying, and their first instinct is to flip it back on you, like you are the one with the problem, that's a major red flag. The good coaches I've had in my life, they wouldn't do that. They would listen to my concerns, and they would validate what I had to say. And if they disagreed with me, they would still validate me. They wouldn't just flip the script, manipulate, and gaslight. They would take time to appreciate my concerns and my feedback. But the more narcissistic coaches, they will not do that. And another thing to look out for with them, pay attention to how you feel around them. A lot of times your gut will tell you something just isn't quite right with them. Maybe they're being a little overly critical. Maybe you'll notice they're always pointing out flaws in you when they're around you. And again, it's one thing if you ask for the feedback. It's one thing if you ask for suggestions or help. It's a completely different thing when you don't say anything like that at all, and you're not even that close to them to begin with. So pay attention, because when someone's always pointing out your flaws, always being critical of you, pointing out things you can be doing better, it might make you feel a certain way. You might be a little hesitant around them. And that's the other thing, the safety of it. You won't feel as safe with the narcissistic coach because you'll feel judged more than likely. And a lot of it is because you are being judged. They keep on pointing out your flaws. They keep on criticizing you. And unless it's asked for, it's not really a pleasant feeling. But a good coach, you're not going to get that uncomfortable feeling with them. Trust your gut. A lot of people that have had experience with narcissistic people, they have taught them to not trust their gut, to second guess themselves, because they've always been gaslit. They've always been told their reality is wrong. And that's one of the things I try to help people to not do. I help them to trust their own reality again. Know that they're not crazy. Know that, yeah, your gut can be right. The narcissistic person constantly teaches people your gut is wrong. The way you think is wrong. The way you feel is wrong. And then they'll tell you what you're thinking. All of that, very crazy making, very manipulative. It is gaslighting. So the person that's a good coach for you, you'll feel safe with them. You'll feel open, and you'll be able to be honest with them without feeling really judged. But the narcissistic coach, again, it's tricky because they're not always wrong in their criticisms, but you'll notice it on the inside. You'll just feel a little bit tense around them. You won't quite feel safe. You'll notice they constantly bring up your shortcomings, your flaws. They criticize you. And if you ever say something about it, they'll flip it back on you and say, that means I'm right. You're only bothered because I'm right about what I'm saying. And it's tricky because sometimes it is a little bit true. But that doesn't mean underneath it, they aren't being narcissistic, that they aren't being manipulative, and they aren't gaslighting you, and at the very least, not validating your reality and validating your feelings. I think that's super important, but your gut feeling around them will be very important. So to go over this again, the two big things I want people to get from this video. One, if someone's charging an exorbitant amount of money and you say something about it and they just flip the script back on you, major red flag. A good coach will know if someone doesn't want to pay me, it means I got to demonstrate more value. End of story. And then you got to watch out for their flying monkeys that may guilt and shame you for just not buying in to the narcissistic coach's reality, it is kind of cult-like, honestly, in a lot of scenarios. And that's very similar to how it can be in MLM too. You gotta watch out for that. Watch out for people that don't really think for themselves. They're just subscribed to some leader or narcissistic coach's reality. Watch out for that, because it can be pretty crazy making, and you can wind up in some bad spots if you don't stop to think for yourself. And one of the things they'll also do is they'll shame people that are realistic, and they'll say, you're just being negative. You have a poverty mentality. Watch out for that, because I'm not saying no one has a poverty mentality, no one is being negative, because that's not true. There are people who are negative. There are people that need to work on their mindset, but it's not always true, right? There's times when those people who say that, they're absolutely right. And then secondly, if you say something to a narcissistic coach or someone in MLM or a sales manager, and their first instinct is to flip the script on you and tell you you have a problem, that's the other red flag to watch out for. And because of that, you probably won't feel safe with them, because you're going to feel judged. You're going to feel like they're always pointing out your flaws and criticizing you. And guess what? You're not wrong. Trust your gut in those scenarios. A good coach you will feel safe with. A good coach will be a comfortable place for you to grow. Now, not all growth is comfortable. In fact, most growth is not comfortable, but they will not be they will not be the source of your uncomfortability. The actual growth will be the source of your uncomfortability. And then you'll push through it, because we got to get uncomfortable to get comfortable sometimes. So those are the two big things to watch out for with the narcissistic coaches: flipping the script, manipulation, toxic positivity, and the flying monkeys, because they certainly contribute too. They contribute to the gaslighting. They contribute to the crazy making, because they're subscribed to the narcissistic coach or MLM leader's reality, and they can commit abuse by proxy. Not always, but sometimes. So that's what I wanted to talk about with narcissistic coaches. But as promised, let's go over the origins of the expression crossing the Rubicon. Now, a lot of people use this expression, and the expression crossing the Rubicon means the point of no return. And the origins are in the year 49 AD, or excuse me, BC. Julius Caesar had an army, and the Senate told him, any army that comes into Italy that crosses the Rubicon is going to be seen as an act of civil war and an act of treason. And Julius Caesar, he wanted to be in charge, and he had his army. And even though the Senate told him, you can't do this, he said, forget it. The cast, or the dice is cast, is what he said. And then he crossed the Rubicon with his army, which meant what? It meant that he was declaring war on Rome. He was declaring war on Italy, and the civil war began. Lucky for Julius Caesar, he did win. But now, that is the origins of the expression crossing the Rubicon, the point of no return. And Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon with his army, and the civil war began. So I thought that was a really interesting story of crossing the Rubicon. I'd heard it before a lot. I've heard a lot of people say it. A lot of people don't know what it means either. But now you will know what it means to cross the Rubicon. So if you got this far, please remember to subscribe to the channel. If you liked what I had to say, hit the notification bell. Like the video if you actually liked it. Comment below what you thought about the video. Maybe share this video with others that maybe are dealing with a narcissistic coach, or maybe are dealing with a toxic person in MLM. Perhaps they could benefit from it. And remember, people that don't validate your feelings and their first instinct is to flip the script, something to definitely watch out for, because that is a red flag. You're probably not going to feel too good about it. They're going to give you a tense feeling. You're going to feel on edge. Don't ignore that. Trust your gut. A good coach, you're going to feel safe with, and you're not going to feel judged with, and they're going to help guide you into positive growth. Not manipulate you into positive growth, not gaslight you into positive growth. They're going to be a good source for you to grow. So with that, thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.